I'm running for City Council for three reasons. First of all, I've been on Planning and Zoning Commission for 5 years, so I feel like I have the experience dealing with contractors, developers, regular folks, hearing their cases. I think over the past 5 years we've heard more than 300 cases, so I have a great deal of experience with that, and I'm able to bring that to the City Council. The second reason is that I really love this place. I've been here 9 years, and I've lived in a number of places around the country, and when we came here, I thought, I don't know if we could live in the desert, and in fact my wife called me when she interviewed and said, there aren't any trees here. Well, there are, of course, but we were living in Canada at the time, the Wood Province, so it was quite a shock. But I came down here, and within a year I felt at home. And the other thing is, I really feel like I can make a contribution to the City Council. I have a lot of ideas. I've been on the 2040 Commission. I was vice chair of the 2040 Commission. So I have a vision for what the county and what the city should be. And my vision is planned growth, so we don't go sprawling out over the landscape, that we have a vision of where we want to go. And I think that's quite important. And I also bring 10 years of business experience, 30 years of academic experience, and a PhD in public policy, which I think is very helpful. Finally, I have connections with the university. I've taught there 9 years. I also teach at the branch part-time. And I feel I can bring a perspective of a university employee and a university person to the City Council. I think that would be very helpful.
Well, I have long felt that each of us has some obligation to the community in which we live to make sure that we leave it a better place, both for ourselves, our families, but also in the larger context. And so as a teacher for 20 years, as a member of the board of Downtown Las Cruces Partnership for 5 years, working on the Mesilla Valley Centennial Planning Committee. I've been chairing that, and we're looking forward to the Centennial Parade. We just had the Salsa Fest. All of that helps bring light to be shown on Las Cruces as far as what we do have here. My parents moved here in 1972. I was in college at the time, so I didn't move here myself at that time, but it has been home basically since that time. And I have a lot of family and friends connections here. It is a great place to live, and when I travel, I try to learn about other places and what's working there. I also tell them about Las Cruces and what we have here. So it is a sort of a two-way street as far as information. But with the experience that I've had teaching, traveling, working for the downtown revitalization and for the Centennial, for the Paleozoic Trackways and numerous other activities in the community, I think I've brought the experience of working for things that benefit this community and things that can leave a lasting legacy for us here. And I'm looking forward to opportunities to work on bringing things such as what we've done for downtown Las Cruces to parts of our community in District 2, such as the University Avenue Corridor. I have had conversations with Ben Woods on that and with Barbara Couture. And I also would like to see the area where the old depot is in Mesilla Park revitalized, and look at other areas where we can do that across the city, but of course specifically in District 2. Also in the downtown area, I think we have made huge progress during my time there, but it was certainly begun by folks before then, and I'm not in any way going to try to claim all the things that we did during my time, but some significant things did happen. The passage of the TID at the state level, the La Placita project, the Comunas building, I think all of those are very critical pieces to what's happening there. And I think some future pieces I would like to see in place are parking structure as soon as possible so that we don't come to a screeching halt with the efforts that we've been making downtown when people want to come in with businesses and things and housing and not find parking. Also the Civic Plaza, also possibly moving the municipal court so that the Museum of Art can go into that final structure, and a number of other things that I think will make our center of art community something that we can be proud of, but also something that will showcase what can be done in this community for businesses and families wanting to move here.
My name is Fred B. Espinosa. I was born and raised in Las Cruces. Spent most of my life growing up on Bellama Circle, right near where Young Park was. We saw Young Park built as children. Went to high school here in Las Cruces, joined the United States Air Force in 1976 to serve my country. Part of my experience involved working as a firefighter to start off for 6 years of my career. Was promoted to special duty assignment as a military training instructor, where I served in San Antonio, Texas, and was decorated for that service, as well as going into Air Force recruiting. I was an Air Force recruiter for 6 years as well of my career. Part of that was right here in Las Cruces at the First National Bank Tower. And those were great experiences in my time. Before I retired, I was moved back to Clovis, to Canada Air Force Base, where I ended my career, the last 2 or 3 years rather, of my career in public affairs, public relations, and journalism, right before I retired in 1994. My experience with the military led me to some great leadership experience, as well as some great things that I learned as a young adult, which helped me moving into the business sector. Right after retirement, I went into the full-time ministry, where my wife and I worked with children, youth, and adults in the full-time ministry in eastern New Mexico and throughout the state. Part of that, of course, involved working in the business sector in sales and customer service, where I gained experience in management as well as in customer service, which has led me to come back and be in the Las Cruces area to be able to give back to our business community. I have very strong family values. I'm been married 33 years. My wife's a graduate of MSU. My son's a graduate of MSU. My daughter's about to become a teacher from MSU as well. I have another daughter who works in the private sector in El Paso. I believe in strong family values. What does that look like? To each individual family means something different. But I think public safety, how we provide programs for our families, what are we doing with the money that the city has right now and the programs that the city has involved. I feel like it's my duty, it's my passion to become involved with the decision process regarding the future of our kids, regarding the future of our city. And involving myself with that, one of the things that I cannot overemphasize is, do we have enough of an educated information in order to make a good decision for the future of our city? That's who I am, that's who I stand for, and I look forward to serving the city.
When a developer takes on a subdivision, or we annex something on the urging of the developer, then the developer pays for the roads and the sewers and then turns them over to the city. And that seems to be a sensible way to work it. The problem, of course, is that we've seen things done sort of piecemeal, and that's not the fault of developers. It's simply the way development goes. And I think the idea of the impact fee on stormwater and drainage and that sort of thing, an extension of infrastructure, was intended then to give us a more uniform grid. And that would be, I think that would be helpful. People would like that better. I know I've been out on East Mesa looking at property because I've been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 5 years. And when we look at sites, we often see what we consider half-built roads. Well, they're not half-built. You know, the thing was the developer was only required to build half the width of the road. And then, of course, they do all the internal improvements in the subdivision. And then they turn it over to the city. So we have a patchwork of things on East Mesa, and I think that's unfortunate. So what Mr. Bean is asking, I suppose, is, you know, could the impact fees pay for this? Yes, I think they could. But I oppose the impact fee on stormwater and the infrastructure. I'm supporting it for public safety. I think we absolutely need that. But it's an interesting problem. And I think the way the system is working now is okay, but obviously it's not satisfying everyone's needs.
Okay. And let me tell you that probably one of the greatest concerns is regarding the fairness. Because with the impact fees, people, you know, one of the unfortunate things that was mentioned at the city council meeting is that impact fees collected on this development over here might actually be used to support redoing infrastructure, putting new infrastructure in another area. And so I think that even though there is the reality that the infrastructure is needed in a specific area because somebody is doing this development here, and so there's a certain degree of, yeah, the infrastructure fees coming out of this development pay for what's going on, or the infrastructure requirements. When you start saying, but it could be used over here, there's that fairness issue. The other piece is I have heard from constituents as I've walked through neighborhoods, and one pointed out, you know, she used the specific name of a contractor, I will not, but she said, you know, the streets are being torn up constantly there because the infrastructure, the plumbing, the sewage, the things that are under the road were not put in properly in the first place. And so that is a very real concern. Not only do the streets sometimes get half-built, you know, we've gone through neighborhoods where, you know, you've got this wide esplanade and then it narrows down to a narrow street and then it widens out again, and that kind of thing. And that can be not only unsightly, but also dangerous in certain situations. And certainly the erosion from the arroyos and that sort of thing can be a problem. But how do we get that consistently applied across our community? I'm not sure that the infrastructure fees, as they are currently structured, even though they're not going to be implemented immediately, adequately address how we do that. I mean, it has been pointed out, they don't pay the whole amount, and the city still has to figure out a way to get the remainder of those costs taken care of. Additionally, I think the city didn't take into account the fact that contractors can probably sometimes get special deals on how to do things. Now, unfortunately, that may result in some of that inferior infrastructure, but additionally, they may be able to get very good work done at a reduced price because of people they know or situations they're aware of, but the city might not. They may also be able to purchase or pay for those things on credit. And the current way that I understand the infrastructure fees to be set up would basically be pay for this as you get your permit. And so there would be two things. One, the structure of the fee itself, not taking into account a lot of other factors that might actually reduce the cost. And two, not being able to pay it out over time on you know, an incremental basis, so that you've got to pay the whole thing up front, and on a significant project that could be a huge amount of money. And so I can understand why the contractors and the developers and the real estate folks would be very upset about that. So I would say that generally, conceptually, I understand why the city council moved forward with the idea of the impact fees. I do think that a lot more could have been done for what are some alternative streams of funding, some other ways to augment what the impact fees are not going to pay for, and other ways to be fair about how it's applied, where infrastructure is actually needed for the safety, comfort, and attractiveness of our community. So I think even though this was delayed and there is potential for future delays because of the economic situation, I do think that more work needed to have been done to make the case for the impact fees, and perhaps there could have been alternatives that hadn't been explored or hadn't been adequately suggested.
Okay. In regards to impact fees, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. By having all of the information necessary to know how the decisions have been made regarding infrastructure within certain building sites, that information needs to be reviewed and re-reviewed. Not only reviewed by City Council, but I think it's important that we have consultation from professionals who know and who do not have a general interest in those specific projects, so that we can obtain a fair estimate or idea of what the costs are that are going to be involved. First of all, what the benefit will be to the community, what the benefit will be to the builders, because of course building a home, building a new business, building any project whatsoever is about profitability, and the last thing we want to do is start cutting here in order to give to one. So having all of our information, having all of our ducks in a row with the right information possible, and then sitting down and taking a systematic approach as to how we develop those properties and those new houses. That's the most important fact, is getting information. We all know that all of the people that are on City Council are not necessarily professional. They may not be builders, they may not be architects. However, we have to rely on the information of those people that are the professionals to give us those educated answers. And it's important that we can put people in those groups that we can trust.
Well, that is another contentious issue that's come before the city, and the City Council has, of course, been privy to some information that we have not. But I think the use of eminent domain, whereas it might be necessary in some circumstances, I don't think the case has adequately been made in this particular circumstance. And without more details, it's very hard to speculate. But I would say that you simply do not go down that path without some really extenuating kinds of circumstances. And so, at least at face value, it looks like a misstep for me.
In regards to the Moongate water eminent domain situation, I am 100% against doing that. I believe that that family worked hard to build that business. They've worked for several years providing that utility for the East Mesa and for the people in that area, and they have done a tremendous job at growing and keeping up with that growth. I personally am a recipient, I would say, of something that was taken away from me. My grandmother owned property downtown right before urban renewal kicked in. She lost her home, her property, and was given a home in another part of the city, worth much less than what she had already. Our family suffered through that. It was an unfortunate situation. Of course, urban renewal took that, and it is now part of the downtown area. That was around the same time that St. Genevieve's was torn down as well. As a child, I remember the devastation that took place, and I think that that would be devastating, and the message that we would be sending would be a negative message. This is something that these people built, and this family built, and this family should have an opportunity. If they would like to sell that at a fair market value, that should be their decision, not something that is imposed upon them.
Well, I think the city's making a big mistake, and I think it's a big, expensive mistake. Eminent domain is a good tool in university development of infrastructure, and it should be used judiciously. And I recall a situation at, I think it was New London, Connecticut, a few years ago, where the city council condemned a private property and then sold it to a developer. This went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court approved it, which I thought was outrageous. A lot of states then passed laws which banned this sort of thing. We haven't done that in New Mexico, and we probably should. I think this is a frivolous thing. Now, Moongate is not, what should I say, they're not scot-free in this. They do put up smoke screens occasionally, and I can recall when I was on planning and zoning, they came and told us that we couldn't approve an annexation of a particular property because it was under litigation. Well, that had nothing to do with the annexation. That had to do with the water rights there. So I don't think they're blame-free, but I think this is a bad move on the city's part. I've talked to Moongate water users, and they're very satisfied with the service. There's no reason why the city should bully this company.